Hello, my name is Jeffrey. I am the Customer Success Team Lead with Schema App. This video is meant to cover everything that you need to know about the COVID-19 announcement rich result. We will walk through this documentation, look at examples, learn what to expect, review the use cases for this rich result, and understand the required and recommended schema properties you need to use to be eligible. Then finally, we will go through an example implementing this markup using Schema App. Let's jump in. The documentation lists some examples of what constitutes a special announcement. So if you are a government organization, healthcare network, a school, really any local organization or civic structure, then these kinds of announcements are relevant for you. And we'll go through the list. Announcement of a shelter-in-place directive, a closure notice, quarantine guidelines, travel restrictions, notification of a new drive-through testing center, announcement of an event transitioning from offline to online or a cancellation, announcement of revised hours and shopping restrictions, or disease spread statistics and maps. If you want to see some examples of how the JSON-LD schema code will look like for these use cases, check out some of the examples from the bar on the right. So we're going to be implementing a COVID testing facility later on. So that's what the code we'll need to implement will look like. Now, okay, so what does this actually look like when it's implemented? So we have that up here at the top. Your information will stand out under your snippet in search. If you use the date posted and expires properties correctly, you'll get this accordion of information under your link showing when the information is relevant and what it is. Okay, so what schema properties do you need to use? What's required and what's recommended? If you click on the structured data type definitions, you will jump to that section, and we see that there are 3 schema properties that are required. First, to note, you are going to be using the special announcement schema.org class as your primary entity for this page. So you're going to use special announcement, the schema class. These are the properties you need that are required. You need a date posted, you need a name, and then you need at least just a body of text. Or if your use case has more specific information, you can use some of the recommended properties to call them out specifically. So only one is required. You just need text to be eligible, but you're encouraged to include as much specific information as you can. So as we go through the recommended properties, you don't need to include every single one. You just need to, or you should include these as they're relevant for you. So in our case, we're going to do a testing facility. So we would have an announcement location. That would be the hospital or the clinic or wherever the testing facility is. If you're doing that, you're going to want to include the name, the URL, and the address for that location. And you can see that represented as other recommended properties. So you have the announcement address, announcement location name, announcement location URL, and so on. You'll want to indicate the category. You'll probably do this regardless, so long as your special announcement's relevant for COVID. Copy this URL, the Wikidata URL for COVID-19, and that will indicate that your announcement is relevant for COVID-19. Then we have disease prevention info, disease spread statistics. If you have that information, use these properties to call it out. If the special announcement you're working on is time sensitive and expires, then use the expires property and indicate a date time for which that will no longer be relevant. If there are specific guidelines for getting tested, then you can use the getting tested info. Just link a URL or create web content schema that explains where you can find that information or what that information is. Same thing goes for news updates and guidelines, public transport closures, quarantine guidelines, school closures info. Next is spatial coverage. So this is the geographic region that's the focus of the announcement, similar to If you have a location, this is the area that this special announcement is relevant for. We have text, so that's the minimum, and travel bans. So if you have information about travel bans, then you would want to indicate the web content describing that, or URL where that web content exists, and probably the spatial coverage for where that travel ban is relevant. Okay, so all of this is changing, and this may evolve with more or less required or recommended properties. Know that if you're using Schema app, we will keep our required and recommended properties fiercely up to date so you can rely on them. But I do recommend checking out this documentation to ensure that you are up to date. Let's jump into our example. So we're going to be marking up a COVID screening and testing facility. That's going to be the Durand Advent Health location. So we're going to go to Schema app, go to the structured data editor, and search in our class tree for the special announcement schema class. There, you're going to create a data item. A data item will need a name and a URL. This is where we're going to deploy the markup. So we'll take the URL. We'll copy that in so there's no mistakes, and we will copy the name of our location as well. Okay, so when this loads, you'll see that we have the required fields, and then we have all of the recommended fields as well. We're not going to fill out all the recommended because our use case only requires a name, text, date posted, and as well, there is news updates and guidelines relevant in our case, and then a location, which is the Durand location. So we'll say the date is today, which is the 15th. And we will say that it was just all day. It started today. The announcement location. So we will create a data item. It is a civic structure, and it's called Durand. Actually, Advent Health Durand. We will create that data item, and we're done. The category, we want to copy the Wikidata URL because this is about COVID, so we're going to have that in there. You can just paste it in and click done. Then we need the text of our announcement, and we'll say this is the text of our announcement, encouraging people to get tested if they exhibit symptoms. Here's our text property. We'll paste it in, and we're done. Note that as you satisfy these requirements and warnings, that warning will disappear for you, so that it's no longer there for the announcement location or category, but it is for the other opportunities that you have to include information. Now, we also have a URL that's relevant for the news updates property, so I'm going to copy that in quickly. Here it is. Just need the URL, and we're done. So that was pretty straightforward. The last thing we have is to satisfy the information about our location. So we will open that data item, and we will edit. We'll see that the fields have changed. So now we want to have the name, which is already there. We want the URL. So we will copy the URL and go there. And we want the address information. So here it is. We'll add a data item. This is the Durand location. Durand location. And that is a postal address. Okay, here are required fields for a postal address. I'm just going to copy them quickly. Need a street address. Durand. The locality is the city or Durand, then it's Wisconsin. It's the USA. And they don't have the zip code, which I'm sure that's fine. And we're done. We'll click done again. This data item is being used by our special announcement, so I can click here to jump and view JSON LD. So here's the markup that we've generated by filling out this form quickly, and we're ready to go with our special announcement markup. Any other updates to the COVID-19 rich results schema markup requirements, we will let you know, and we hope that you can implement this quickly so that you get your news out there as fast and easily as possible. Thank you.